Right, Erev Sukkot on Erev Shabbos. 5:32. Hello?
Just a minute.
Okay.
All right. I just need to. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Ma tovu halecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu halecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. At the bottom of the page, it says, you shall celebrate 3 festivals of pilgrimage to me during the year. This is from Exodus chapter 23, verses 14 through 16. 3 festivals of pilgrimage to me during the year. The festival of Matzot you shall keep for 7 days, as I commanded you. You shall eat unleavened bread or matzah in the appointed month of spring. For in that time you went forth out of Egypt. Do not appear before me empty-handed. So that's Passover. The festival of early harvest for the first fruits of your labors in your seeding of the field, that's Shavuot, and the festival of gathering in at the turning of the year, when you shall gather in your labors from the field, that is Sukkot. The 3 pilgrimage festivals. So that is what we are entering into at this moment. I mentioned that I am lighting the candles al tanai without a blessing. So we'll go to 546. Would someone read this, please?
Now the days grow shorter, and the warmth of summer gives way to the coolness of autumn. Soon the unfertile winter, with its fallow ground, will be with us. We are grateful for the bounty of the fall harvest, not only for its tastes and sights and smells, but also for its protection against winter's cold hunger. We celebrate the harvest fruit for more than the pleasure they give. They recall the redemptive power in nature, the goodness of the earth, the divine presence that unifies our world and sustains our lives.
So, page 354. Here we are. Here, I sit here actually at the moment so you can see me. Ready in body and mind to fulfill the mitzvah of the 4 species of the tree. As it is written in the Torah, you shall take up for yourselves upon the first day of Sukkot the ornamental fruit, the fronds of date palms. Okay, the ornamental fruit. Here we go. Etrog, citron, the Pri Etz Hadar, the beautiful fruit of the tree, or the fruit of the beautiful tree. The fronds of date palms. We got the palm and the sprig of myrtle and the willows of the stream. As I wave them, may a wealth of blessings and of holy thoughts pour forth upon us. May you bring us near to you in perfect oneness and spread over us the sukkah of your peace. And may the pleasure of the merciful one dwell over us. May you make secure for us the labor of our hands ensure. Baruch atah, Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen v'amen. Blessed is the one eternally, amen and amen. So we have the etrog, the palm, and the palm, willow, and myrtle. And we're going to turn to the next page on the list, 646, in reference to the fact that we have one of the rituals on Sukkot is the Hoshanot, Hoshana. Hoshana means save us. Nah, please, save, if you will. Save, if you will. Hoshana lamancha Eloheinu, Hoshana lamancha boreinu, Hoshana lamancha Goaleinu, Hoshana lamancha dorshenu, Hoshana. You might notice it goes on in alphabetical order. For the sake of your all-embracing truth, for the sake of your binding covenant, for the sake of your greatness and your beauty, for the sake of your divine voice, for the sake of your heavenly splendor, for the sake of your wise assembly, for the sake of your sign and remembrance, for the sake of your heavenly love, and for the sake of your timeless good. Next page. Selections from the Hallel. Beit Yisrael mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am lo'ez. Beit Yisrael mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am lo'ez. Hayata Yehuda lekadsho, Yisrael mam shlotov. Hayata Adonai lekadsho, Yisrael mam shlotov. Hayam raha v'hayanos, Hayarden yihtov la'achor, Harim rakadu elim givaot kivnetzon, Malecha hayam. That's supposed to be responsively. Malecha hayam, Malecha hayam, Kitanus, Kitanus, Hayarden. Hayarden, tisov le'achor, tisov le'achor, harim, harim, tirkadu ke'elim, tirkadu ke'elim, gevahot, gevahot, kivnetzon, kivnetzon, milifnei Adon, milifnei Adon, Holy Aretz, Holy Aretz, Melifnei, Melifnei, Elohai Yaakov, Elohai Yaakov, Hahochi Hatzor, Hahochi Hatzor, Agahamayim, Agahamayim, Chalamish, Chalamish, Lamaino Mayim, Lemaino mayim. What's on the next page? I know I put it there. Yes. Let's go to the next page, actually. Min hametzar kaharatiya, anani v'hamerchavya. Min hametzar kaharatiya, Anani v'hamerchavya, Anani, Anani, Anani v'hamerchavya, Anani, Anani, Anani v'hamerchavya. Min hametzar, from the narrow, Karatiya, I called out to God. Anani, God answered v'merchavya. Anani v'merchav, in widening. A short drash. You've probably heard, we talk about coming out of Egypt at Passover, and also Sukkot. Sukkot's about wandering through the wilderness. And so we talk about coming out of Mitzrayim, Egypt, and the rabbis make a point that Mitzarim, from the narrow places, Mitzrayim, Egypt, it means or resembles the word narrow places, which makes sense because Egypt is very narrow, it's just along the Nile. So the coming out of Egypt is the coming out of narrow places, coming out of narrow straits. But of course, we end up in the desert. And among spiritual teachers, there's a lot of reflection about the desert and the potential of insight and meditation in the wide open spaces of the desert. And of course, we received the Torah in the desert at Mount Sinai. A mountain that isn't even in the land of Israel. It's just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But in the wide open spaces. And maybe that's on a spiritual level, part of also what we talk about in coming out of Egypt. If you really want perspective, you come out of where you're cluttered and pressed and pushed and go to a place where you can think widely, see widely, go into the wide spaces. So from the narrow places, I cried out to God, and God answered with wideness. If only so I could see. In any case, let's go on. So the last 4 lines in Hebrew, I'm going to sing it twice. If you don't know it the first time, sing it with me the second time. Odecha ki anitani v'atehi li lishua. Odecha ki anitani v'atehi li lishua. Even masu abonim ha'eta lerosh pina. Even masu abonim ha'eta lerosh pina. Mi'et Adonai ha'eta zot hi niflahat b'einenu. Mi'et Adonai ha'eta zot hi niflahat b'einenu. Zeh hayom asa Adonai nagila v'nismecha bo. Zeh hayom asa Adonai nagila v'nismecha bo. And I think there's one more page to that. Yeah, we'll just conclude with the top. Ana Adonai Hoshiana. Now you say that. Yeah, I didn't hear, but I think you did anyway. Ana Adonai Hoshiana. Ana Adonai Hatzlichana. Ana Adonai Hatzlichana. So there we did that responsively across the distances, seemingly alone, but we're all together. We know that. Blessed all who come in this one's name. We bless you in the omnipresence house and in our houses. Divine is the eternal one who gives us light. Adorn the festive place with leafy boughs. Up to the corners of the altar shrine. You are my God, to you I offer thanks. My God, whom I revere, give thanks to the Eternal One, who is good, whose love is everlasting. And what I'd like you to recall is that at this time of year, at this holiday, this was known, Sukkot was known as Chag, the festival. It is the joyous time. It is, in the Siddur, it's Zman Simchatenu, the time of our rejoicing. And there were these Hoshana, there were processions around the temple complex and around the altar, and with hundreds or thousands of these palms and etrogim parading around. And it is, in a sense, a vestige of that we would do in a synagogue, and which, in fact, we're doing here. So this is an echo in time being brought to you, courtesy of Zoom and YouTube today. Wish everyone a good Yantif and a good Shabbos also. So let's turn the page. Yes, okay. We lit the candles all tonight. I'm going to put this down now. It's a symbol of bounty and abundance and beauty. So we're going to say, I believe there's 3 blessings here. I think there's another blessing on the next page. Is that? Go back. No, I don't see that. Okay. No, there's 2 blessings because that's right here. Right, of course. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat v'yom tov. Blessed are you, source of light, our God, sovereign of all worlds, who has made us holy with your mitzvot and commanded us to kindle the light of Shabbat and festival. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lahazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who keeps us alive, sustains us, and allows us to reach this time. And now we're going to try to see these lights. Now I just got to position things so that I can do that. They are lit. I know that we're not seeing it yet. Okay, got to get lower. There we go. Kind of. There we go. Okay. There we go. So we are now going to go to page 558 as we continue. That was the greeting of the festival, but also the greeting of Shabbat. With this psalm that was sung in the temple on Shabbat, it is a psalm for the day of Shabbat. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lahodod lahadonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, lehagir baboker chastecha, ve'emonatecha balelot, alei asor v'alei navel, alei gayon bechinor. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lahodod lahadonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. Ki simachtani Adonai befa'alecha, b'ma'aseh yadecha aranen, ma gadlo ma'asecha Adonai, me'od amku machshavotzecha. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lahodot lahadonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. Would someone read at the top of the next page? No, there we are. Someone please read in English just the first two, just the top two stanzas.
It's Lisa. I'll do it. The righteous flourish like the palm trees, like cedars of Lebanon they grow, and planted in the house of the all-knowing. Amid the courtyards of our God they bear fruit. In their old age they'll put forth seed, fleshy and fresh they'll ever be, to tell the uprightness of the matchless, my rock in whom no fault resides.
Tzadikat hamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yizkeh, shetulim beveit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu. Od Yenuvon v'seva, deshenim v'ra'ananim yehu, lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzuri v'lo avlat habo. And now on the same page, one of the fun things about this next psalm, Psalm 93, also associated with this time of the week, is that it seems to reflect a way that some traditions that it's thought the creation story were understood by which the creation story was understood in ancient times, seems to be reflected in the Psalms too, that creation in the book of Genesis is really the struggle of order over chaos, order over chaos. It's creation in Genesis is not creating something from nothing. It's not something from nothing. If you look at the book of Genesis, Bereshit bara Elohim. At the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth was tohu vavohu, was all humble jumble, and the face of God hovered over the depths of the waters. I mean, so it's not that there was nothing there. There was something there. There was something, but God imposes order. It's all about the forces of chaos being subdued by the forces of order. And there's this constant effort that needs to continue to happen to maintain order. Classic, even modern physics talks about that too, with the energy it takes to maintain order. Chaos is often represented by the seas, the oceans, the waters. And when you're standing at the edge of the sea, which could also be the edge of the world, the edge of the land, you can see the battle between chaos and order, chaos and order. The waves come up and they're pushed back down, and the waves come up and they're pushed back down. The tides come and the tides go. Constant battle to maintain order, which of course creation, Shabbat has a lot to do with creation. It's a celebration of, well, maybe it's not the completion. It's reaching a point where now it's just about maintaining this order. So we have this psalm which seems to reflect all of that. The battle between order and chaos, the battle between land and sea. Would someone read this, please, in English, Psalm 93?
The sublime one reigns, clothed in majesty. The light is clothed, is girded with might. The world is now established, it cannot give way. Your throne was long ago secured. Beyond eternity are you. The rivers raise, source of life. The rivers raise a roaring sound. The floods raise up torrential waves, but louder than the sound of the mighty waters, more exalted than the breakers of the sea. Raised up on high are you, inexpressible. Your precepts have retained their truth, and holiness befits your house, the gracious one forever.
Erotepcha nemnuhu me'ol leveitecha nava hakodesh, Adonai leorech yamim. Next page, a call to prayer. And maybe what we'll do is unmute just this so that we can at least have hear the response, or get effect of the response. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed. Yes. Let's be seated. The next page about God in the midst of creation. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv haravim. Would someone please read this in English?
Blessed are you, eternal one, our God, sovereign of all worlds, by whose word the evenings fall. In wisdom you open heaven's gates. With divine discernment, you make seasons change, causing the times to come and go, and ordering the stars on their appointed paths through heaven's dome, all according to your will. Creator of the day and night, who rolls back light before the dark and dark before the light, who makes day pass away and brings on night, dividing between day and night. The leader of the multitudes of heaven is your name. Living and enduring God, rule over us now and always. Blessed are you, Almighty One, who makes the evenings fall.
ומעביר יום ומהביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים. And on page 569, with everlasting love, you love the house of Israel. Torah and mitzvot, laws and justice you have taught us. This is about the giving of Torah itself as an act of love. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachveinu u'v'komeinu nasiach b'chokecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו, For the mitzvot are our life and the length of our days, and upon them we will meditate day and night. Baruch ata Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Listen up, Israel. Adonai is our God. Adonai is one. Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ושכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. The next page, if someone would read from, do we have 574? Yes, would someone read from this section? The middle of 574 and then 576.
If you truly listen to my bidding, as I bid you now, loving the fount of life, your God, and serving God with all your heart, with every breath, then I will give you rain upon your land in its appointed time, the early rain and later rain, so you may gather in your corn, your wine, and oil. And I will give you grass upon your field to feed your animals, and you will eat and be content. Beware then, let your heart be led astray, and you go off and worship other gods, and you submit to them, so that the anger of the Mighty One should burn against you, and seal up the heavens so no rain would fall, so that the ground would not give forth her produce, and you be forced to leave the good land I am giving you. So place these words upon your heart into your life breath. Bind them as a sign upon your hand, and let them rest before your eyes. Teach them to your children, speaking of them when you sit at home and when you walk upon the road, when you lie down and when you rise. Inscribe them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates, so that your days and your children's days be many on the land of the faithful one promised to give your ancestors, as long as heaven rests above the earth.
And the next page. Someone please read this.
The Boundless One told Moses, "Speak to the Israelites. Tell them to make themselves tzitzit upon the corners of their clothes throughout their generations. Have them place upon the corner tzitzit a twine of royal blue. This is your tzitzit. Look at it and remember all of the mitzvot of the Eternal One, and do them so you won't go off after the lusts of your heart or after what catches your eye, so that you remember to do all my mitzvot and be holy for your God. I am the faithful one, your God, who brought you from Mitzrayim to be for you a God. I am the infinite, your God."
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת ואמונה כל זאת וקיים עלינו, כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואין זולתו, ואנחנו ישראל עמו. Again, would someone read this page, please?
Our faith and truth rests on all this, which is binding upon us, that the Boundless One alone is our divinity, and that no divinity exists but one, that we are Israel, community of God, and that it is God who saves us from the land of governments, the very palm of tyrants, who enacts great deeds without measure, and wondrous deeds beyond all count. I got to move my computer here. Who puts our souls among the living, who keeps our feet from giving way, who breaks apart the schemes of those who hate us, confounds the thoughts of any bearing us ill will, that it is God who made mistakes for us in Egypt. Miracles, God who made miracles for us in Egypt, signs and wonders in Ham's children's land. From one generation to the next, God is our guarantor. And even on a day that turned to night, God stayed with us when death's deep shadow fell. And even in the age of orphans and survivors, God's loving acts have not abandoned us. And God has brought together our scattered kin from the distant corners of the earth. As then, so now, God brings the people, Israel, forth from every place of menace to a lasting freedom. God is the one who brought the Israelites through the divided sea of reeds. There they beheld divine might, and they praised and thanked the name, and willingly accepted for themselves God's rule.
Next page. Moses, Miriam, and all Israelites broke out in song, abundant in their joy. All as one said, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele. נורא תהילות תוסף אלה. מערכותיך רהור בניך בוקע ים לפני משה. זה אלינו ויאמרו, זה אלינו ויאמרו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גל Yisrael. Blessed are you, the guardian, Israel's redeeming power. Page 587. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Bamidenu malkeinu lechaim, Ufaros aleinu, Ufaros aleinu, Sukkot Shlomecha. Help us to lie down, dear one, our God, in peace, and let us rise again, our sovereign, to life. Spread over us the sukkah of your peace. Decree for us a worthy daily lot, and redeem us for the sake of your great name, and enfold us in the wings of your protection, for you are our redeeming guardian. Truly, a sovereign, gracious, and compassionate God are you. Guard our going forth each day for life and peace now and always. Spread over us the sukkah of your peace. Uferos aleinu sukkot shlomecha, baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukkot shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 591. From Exodus 31, this signature for Shabbat in the Torah. V'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabat, lasot et ha-shabat, ledoratam berit olam. V'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabat, lasot et ha-shabat, ledoratam berit olam. Beini uven bnei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. V'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabat, lasot et ha-shabat, ledoratam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz, v'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabat, lasot et ha-shabat, ledoratam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat v'inafash, shavat v'inafash, shavat v'inafash, v'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabat, lasot et ha-shabat, ledoratam berit olam. And the signature verse from the Torah of the festivals, this verse which comes at the end of a long summary of our festival seasons, the cycle of the festivals. V'yedaber Moshe et modei Adonai el bnei Yisrael. Moses proclaimed the festivals of the enduring one to the children of Israel. So now on page 593, we begin to move into the Amidah, which follows the Chatzi Kaddish. We move into the Amidah for Yantif, with additions for Shabbat. And some of you may choose to recite this in traditional fashion for Mariv, which is standing, facing towards Jerusalem, silently. For a number of technical reasons, I will recite it partly in Hebrew, partly in English, out loud. Page 593. Yitkadahal v'yitkadash shemer rabba v'yamad yivrachotei v'yamich v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chay dechol beit Yisrael b'hagala uv'izman kariv v'yamaro amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam olam me'omai yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'recho le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tosh b'chata v'nechemata dahamiran b'yalma v'emaro amen. Page 597. Open my lips, beloved one, and let my mouth declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. El Gadol, Hagibor, Vahanora, El Elyon, Gamel Chasadim Tovim, V'knei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imot, U'mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Blessed are you, our God and God of our ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Sarah, God of Rebekah, the God of Rachel, the God of Leah. Great, heroic, awesome God, supreme divinity, imparting deeds of kindness, begetter of all, mindful of the loyalty of Israel's ancestors, bringing with love redemption to their children's children for the sake of your name. Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'elam Adonai Rav Lahoshiyah. Mohorid Hahatal. In loyalty you sustain the living, nurturing the life of every living thing, upholding those who fall, healing the sick, freeing the captive, and remaining faithful to all life held dormant in the earth. Micha mocha bal guvurot umido mehelach melech meimit u'mechahayeh u'matzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atah l'chayot kol chai baruch atah Adonai mechayeh kol chai. Holy are you, your name is holy, and all holy beings hail you each day. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, kadoshim b'chol yom yehalu chaseva, baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Blessed are you, the awesome one, the holy God. You have loved us, and you have taken pleasure in us, and have made us holy with your mitzvot. You have brought us, Sovereign One, near to your service, and have called us to the shelter of your great and holy name. And you have given us, Almighty One, our God, in love, the Shabbatot for rest, the festivals for happiness, the holidays for seasons of rejoicing, the day of Shabbat, and of the festival of Sukkot, Zman Simchatenu, the time of our happiness, of our rejoicing, with love, a holy convocation, a remembrance of the going out from Egypt. Eloheinu v'Elahei avoteinu v'imotenu, ya'aleh v'yavo v'yagia v'yireh v'yiratzeh v'yishama v'yifaked v'zacher zikronenu uv'viktonenu v'zichron avoteinu v'imotenu v'zichron yamot HaMashiach v'zichron Yerushalayim Yakadshecha v'zichron kol amcha be'Yisrael lefanecha leflei tal tova lecheinu chesed u'rachamim lechaim u'shalom be'yom chag haSukkot hazeh. Remember us this day, all-knowing one, our God, for goodness. Favor us this day with blessing. Preserve us this day for life. With your redeeming, nurturing word, be kind and generous. Act tenderly on our behalf and grant us victory over all our trials. Truly, our eyes turn toward you, for you are a providing God. Gracious and merciful are you. Eloheinu v'Elahei avoteinu v'imotenu, yehi ratzon melefanecha she'ya'areh aleinu ruach mimarom b'yom hakadosh hazeh lechonen et Eretz Yisrael lechadesh ulkadesh ota la'avodatecha v'shachan ba'aretz shalom chofesh tzedek u'mishpat ka'katuv v'yad nevi'echa. God, our God, ancient God, may it be your will that a heavenly inspiration be awakened in us on this holy day to rebuild the land of Israel, to renew it, to make it holy for your service, and may peace prevail there, as well as freedom, justice, and the rule of law, as it is written by your prophet, saying, truly Torah shall go forth from Zion, and the word of the eternal from Jerusalem. And it is said, let none do harm, let none destroy throughout my holy mountain, for the earth is filled with the knowledge of the omnipresent as the waters fill the sea. And place over us, eternal one, our God, the blessing of your festivals for life, for peace, for happiness, and for rejoicing, as you have desired and promised to bless us. Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, retzeh v'mnuchatenu, kadshenu b'mitzvotecha, v'ten chalkenu b'toratecha, sabeinu metovecha, v'samchenu b'shuatecha, v'taher libeinu le'avdecha be'emet, v'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu, b'ahava uvratzon, b'simcha uvsason, Shabbat modeh kodshecha, v'yismecho v'cha, Yisrael mikadshei shemecha, Baruch atah Adonai. Blessed are you, Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat, V'Yisrael v'Hazmanim, who makes Shabbat, Israel, and the festivals holy. Retzeh Adonai Eloheinu b'yamcha Yisrael, v'lahav tfilatam b'havel tikabel. Take pleasure, gracious one, our God, in Israel, your people. Lovingly accept their fervent prayer. May Israel's worship always be acceptable to you. And may our eyes behold your homecoming with merciful intent to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai, hamachazir shchinato leTzion. Blessed are you, the faithful one who brings your presence home to Zion. Modim anachnu lach, sha'atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu le'olam va'ed, tzor chayenu magen yishenu atahu lador vador. We thank you and recount your praises. Al chayinu hamsurim biadecha, for our life and which is in your hand. V'al nishmotenu hapgadot lach, for our souls that are in your charge. V'al nisecha shebachol yom imanu, for your miracles that are with us every day. V'al niflotecha v'tovotecha, for your wonders and your goodnesses. Shebechol et erev v'tzoharayim, with us every hour, evening, morning, and noon. Hatov ki lo chalu rachamecha v'amrachem ki lo tanu chasadecha mi'olam kevinu lach. Your compassions never cease. We ever hope in you. For all these things, may your name be blessed and raised in honor always, sovereign of ours forever. V'chol ha'chaim yiducha sela v'yahalelu et shimcha b'emet ha'el yeshuateinu v'ezratenu sela. Baruch atah Adonai. Blessed are you, Adonai. Tov Shimcha, whose name is goodness. Lehodot, and to whom all thanks are due. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha. Grant abundant shalom, peace, wholeness, fullness, eternally for Israel, your people. For you are the sovereign source of all shalom. So may it be a good thing in your eyes to bless your people Israel and all who dwell on earth in every time and hour with your shalom. Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom. Let us take a moment for silent reflection and the prayers of our hearts. Would someone read on page 612, please?
Dear God, protect my tongue from evil and my lips from telling lies. excuse me. May I turn away from evil and do what is good in your sight. Let me be counted among those who seek peace. May my words of prayer and my heart's meditation be seen favorably. Beloved one, my rock and my redeemer. May the one who creates harmony above make peace for us and for all Israel, and for all who dwell on earth, and say Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Oh, yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yamro amen. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Oh, yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yamro amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yal yoshvei tevel. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yal yoshvei tevel. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yal Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yal yoshvei tevel. V'yamro Amen. And now we're going to read or say a blessing for those who are ill. We have some names.
His.
I have them. Here.
Okay. I have some names.
So Elvin Ben, widower of Sharon Ben, Jana Kelly in the staff of the LaSalle General Hospital as they battle COVID, Charlotte Lee, Eva Choper, John Stoner, Jill Hirsch, Stu Kranzel, and Honey Avis.
Are there others?
Robert, Robbie, Janny, Sherry, Cole.
Brian Palmer, Kathy Thomas.
Leah. For these and others who struggle with illness, and indeed so many who are struggling in the pandemic, may the one who blesses all life bless and heal these people who struggle against illness. May those afflicted with disease be blessed with faith, courage, loving, and caring. May they know much support and sustenance from their friends, their loving companions, and their communities. May they be granted a full and complete healing of body and soul. May those who seek ways of healing through increased medical knowledge, and those who care for the sick daily, be blessed with courage, stamina, and communal support. May all the sick and the well together be granted courage and hope, especially in these days. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Mi sheberach avoteinu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu Mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. יתגדל ויקרא שמי רבה, בעלמא דברכותיה וימליך בחייכון ומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולם מעלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה ברכו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן ביעלמא ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותון אבותון דכל בית ישראל קדם ובהונדי ושמיא ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ויאמרו amen. Yes, page 548. One of the things I'm trying to do this evening is touch on some of the many traditions of Sukkot. We talked about lulav and etrog. We'll talk about the sukkah. Another tradition for Sukkot, this zman simchatenu, this day of this time of our rejoicing, this most joyful of festivals. One of the traditions is on the Shabbat of Sukkot to read Kohelet, read Ecclesiastes, which is just about the most opposite book. Oh, it's about the opposite from joy. It is such a cynical book, actually. This little section is one of the most famous parts of it. L'chol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a time. For every desire and opportunity beneath the heavens. The book opens up with the words Hevel, Hevel, Havalim, Hevel. Hevel, it's classically translated as vanity, vanity, all is vanities. It's also futility, futility, all is futile. Could also be emptiness, emptiness, all is emptiness. Meaninglessness, meaninglessness. That's what the book is saying. Everything is meaningless. What goes one way eventually goes another way. All the rivers flow into the sea, and yet the sea is never full. What is built up in one generation is torn down in the next. Yeah, so I tried wealth, that didn't do it. I tried mirth, happiness, joy, that didn't do it. I tried wisdom, that didn't do it, because it just doesn't matter. The same fate awaits all of us. That is what this book is about. Isn't it so happy? So one of the things to ponder is, why are we reading this book on such a joyous time? Is it to keep us in check, keep us grounded? Or is it to show us how, in a sense, how is it to be a contrast to the gratitude we're supposed to feel, so that we can understand how much more valuable happiness and gratitude is, because we could be living in a state of Ecclesiastes all the time, of Kohelet. It's an interesting question, though. And so this, for everything there is a time, for every desire and opportunity beneath the heavens. So now this gives you some context of why we're saying this. There's a time for giving birth, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot what is planted, a time to slay, a time to heal, a time to break, a time to build, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time for casting stones, a time to gather them, a time for embracing, a time for holding back, a time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to throw away, a time to tear, a time to mend, a time for keeping silent, and a time to speak, a time for love, a time to hate, a time for war, a time for peace. So for all of that, one of the ongoing refrains of the book is Ein chadash tachat hashamash. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything that happens happened before. And yet, the book does reaches a conclusion. In the end, what matters? Revere God and do mitzvot. Revere God and do mitzvot. And maybe that's one way to think about it when we say God sanctifies us, makes us holy with mitzvot. That ultimately, wherever we're going to find meaning, where are we going to find meaning? Every time we do a mitzvah, it is an affirmation of meaning. Every time we do a mitzvah, it's a statement. We're making a statement that ultimately it means something. And perhaps that is the ultimate statement of faith. That in spite of everything, we still do mitzvot. We continue a discussion because I think what is next? I see nothing there. So we have a drash, is that right? The drash does continue. I want to focus on just a couple of readings from the Torah. Again, trying to look at some of the traditions of Sukkot. So this one reading is actually directly associated with Sukkot. It's the reading, part of the reading for today, which simply says, it's from Leviticus 23. Howbeit on the 15th day of the seventh month being Tishrei, 15th day being the middle of the month, which means a full moon, by the way. So the skies are bright. You got a full moon. On the 15th day of the seventh month, when you have gathered in the fruits of the land, you shall keep the feast of Adonai for 7 days. On the first day shall be a solemn rest, and on the 8th day shall be a solemn rest. You know that question. Where did that 8th day come from? It says 7 days. That 8th day is what we'll be celebrating next week, Shemini Atzeret. And you shall take to yourself on the first day the fruit of goodly trees. There we go. We did that already there. That was the fruit of goodly trees. Branches of palm trees. Boughs of thick trees, that's understood to be myrtle, and willows of the brook. So willows. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God. You shall rejoice. You shall keep it a feast unto the Lord for 7 days in the year. It is a statute forever in your generations. You shall keep it in the 7th month. And you shall dwell in booths, in Sukkot, for 7 days. All that are homeborn in Israel shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And then that verse, Vaydaber Moshe et Moedei Adonai el bnei Yisrael. That's the Kiddush. Moses declared unto the children of Israel the appointed seasons of the Lord. So we saw there, first of all, a command, you shall rejoice. Think about that. What does it mean that we're actually commanded to rejoice? Don't feel like it so much? Well, it's a mitzvah. It's a command. You shall rejoice. So we rejoice. It is the joyous festival. Joy is an affirmation of life. Just like performance of mitzvot is an affirmation of life. We are affirming meaning, maybe even in spite of the meaninglessness we read in Ecclesiastes. And you're to dwell in these booths. These booths. What are they about? What are these booths about? They are flimsy. Art Waskow, who is an activist and a rabbi, he's written about how a sukkah is the opposite of a bomb shelter. You can't be hunkered down in a sukkah. You are out there in the open. You are vulnerable. You are exposed, and you are emphasizing your vulnerability, our interdependence we are emphasizing our interdependence, our dependence on everything around us when we are dwelling in a sukkah. And that is essential for gratitude. This is a Thanksgiving festival. It is essential. If you're going to be thankful, you have to understand your vulnerability, just how bad things would be if you didn't have what you have. So living in a sukkah is a reminder of our need, which then leads us to a sense of gratitude. It's also, though, a reminder that in your generations, you may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths. It is a reminder of the wanderings in coming out of Egypt. So that leads to the next reading. Before I do that, though, I will say a word about why, for the most part, we don't most of the time actually move in all the time into the sukkah, because this is a holiday where you shall rejoice, you shall rejoice, you shall be joyful. You're not supposed to make yourself suffer. So if it's raining, if it's cold, you're not required, in fact, you shouldn't afflict yourself to live in discomfort. But we try to eat as many meals as possible in the sukkah. Now, as far as what we're supposed to remember with this sukkah, what is going on here? I have this theory. Nobody actually knows the origin of the sukkah from an anthropological perspective. It is true that in the Middle East, even until now, often with the fields removed from people's houses, when the fruit is ripe, people will build, certainly they used to, much more than now, but they still do build huts in their fields so that they can live there, watch over their produce while they're harvesting it. And in fact, I should mention, I harvested something in my garden, huge. Someone will have to tell me how to cook something this size. It's a little bigger than it's supposed to be, but it was hiding under some leaves. This is the season we're in. This is an expression of the gratitude of the abundance that we live with. That is supposed to be a little yellow squash. But we're supposed to remember something else as well. And here's a reading which I think is very relevant, but is not necessarily connected with Sukkot. It's on Deuteronomy 8. For the Lord your God brings you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths, springing forth in valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey. It's probably date honey. A land in which you shall eat bread without scarceness. You shall not lack anything in it. A land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you may dig brass. And you shall eat and be satisfied and bless the Lord your God for the good land which God gives you. That, by the way, is where we get this, the blessing after eating, because it says you shall eat and be satisfied and then bless. But it continues, beware lest you forget the Lord your God in not keeping God's commandments and God's ordinances and God's statutes, which I command you this day. Lest when you have eaten and are satisfied and have built goodly houses and have dwelt in them, and when your herds and your flocks multiply and your silver and your gold is multiplied and all that you have is multiplied, it goes on to say, beware, once you've amassed all of this, that you don't forget. Beware that you do forget. Beware of forgetting and thinking to yourself, saying to yourself, it's my power and the might of my hand that got me this wealth. Right? Don't say you're a totally self-made person. You forget. You shall remember the Lord, that it is the Lord. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is God that gives you the power to get wealth. It is God that gives you the power to get wealth. whatever energy is flowing through our being, that is what we're using to get wealth, to amass what we have. It's that energy flowing through us. We didn't do that. We didn't do that. We are in a fortunate position to be able to have whatever we have. And we have to remember that how dependent we are on everything beyond us. In addition, I wonder if part of why we do this is because we used to be a nomadic people way back when. This is saying, don't forget, when right now, Moses is saying in Deuteronomy, you are living in the wilderness, and I'm talking to you about what's going to happen when you get into that land. And you've amassed wealth, and you're living in these goodly houses. When you are in these permanent houses, don't forget the ways you learned when you were nomadic, when you were wandering through the wilderness. Years ago, I noticed years ago when as a kid, my family, we took a trip across country out west, which is a story in itself. But when we were in Navajo country, we noticed that the Navajos who were living in modern houses had traditional houses outside. And we were told that sometimes they would move into those houses, that it had been disruptive to their way of life to be moved into these modern houses. And I remember being in Israel and seeing Bedouin towns, and again, modern houses that Bedouins were living in, but outside were these temporary houses. And we were told that it is disruptive to their way, it was disruptive to their way of life to be moved into permanent housing. That for nomadic people, perhaps, who have ways that are around which their society is centered, for them to move into permanent dwellings, it can be very disruptive. And perhaps there's a memory here of that movement from being nomadic to being settled. And once a year, we move back into that nomadic state out in the desert, where there was all that breadth, that broadness, that width, where we could actually see and remember what we're about. And we take this time to remember where we came from and what we learned way back then, so that we don't forget it now. And we remember to be grateful, and we remember to be joyful, and not so centered on how everything is about us and everything comes from us. That we are not the center of the universe, but we're living as one among many, dependent on everything around us. So I wish you a joyous, happy, meaningful Yontif, a happy Sukkot, one in which we remember with joy and gratitude everything we have to be happy for. And even if you don't have a sukkah, put something like this around your house to remind you of the abundance of the world we're living in, especially this time of year when we need to be reminded of everything that we have to be thankful for, because there's a lot going on, but thank goodness we actually can hope for a vaccine maybe in a year. I mean, sounds like a long time, but we have to be grateful for the fact that even that's a possibility. Shabbat Shalom, good Yontif.
Shabbat Shalom.
pinch out for a bigger view. That's what my screen says. We're going to say Kiddush. That's what, page 627. Kiddush is different. It's for Shabbat and Yom Tov. It's actually 627 and 629. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kra'anu lavodato v'romemanu b'kedushato v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'atitem lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava Shabbatot lemnucha u'moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom השבת הזה ואת יום חג הסוכות הזה זמן שמחתנו באהבה מקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי עלינו קראת ואותנו קידשת לעבודתך ושבת ומועדי קודשך באהבה וברצון בשמחה ובששון הנחלתנו Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat v'Yisrael v'Hazmanim Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam She'eheyanu v'kiyamanu v'hegeyanu lahazman hazeh. Chaim. Say Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latet gdula liyotzeh breshit shenatan lanu Torah hatemet v'chayei olam nata betochenu ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגבי מרחמים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו וזולתו ככתוב בתורתו וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. And so we put our hope in you, the Adonai, our God, that soon we may behold the full splendor of your might and see idolatry vanish from the earth and all material gods be swept away, and the power of your rule repair the world. For this is all your realm throughout all worlds, across all time, as it is written in the Torah. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. In reciting the Kaddish, we affirm our awareness of holiness in our world. Much of our experience of divine goodness, grace, and love has come to us through those whose lives have touched our own. We invoke the transcendent power of love and caring as we sanctify God's name. Today, we are remembering a number of people. We're going to read some names, which I believe Ira has. I'm also going to invite everyone at the home to add the names they're thinking of. The people in the home are certainly in our thoughts, even though we can't quite see them the way they can see us, but we're thinking of you.
Okay, so the week we remember the memory of Barry Ben, the brother of Eileen Kranzel, Kurt Moses, the father of Michelle Moses, Erwin S. Tollins, a friend of TBS, Clint Rose, the stepfather of Pam Eisenhower, Sonny Bowers, a longtime TBS member, Sharon Ben, the sister-in-law of Eileen Kranzel, and Mike Sokolow, Jr., the husband of former TBS member Denny Serrato. Also, at this time of year, we have the Yortsites for Norman Berg, who's the father of Steve Berg, Donald Buckman, who's the friend of Carolyn Arnold Hillman, and Brabazon, a friend of Carolyn Arnold Hillman, Teresa Fox Fry, the mother of Henry Fry and Flora Ann Fry, Helen Feldman, the mother of Naomi Cohen, and Ethel Friedman, the aunt of Marilyn Kranzel Stoner.
Are there others?
Peter Hedrick.
Yes. In memory of these and others who have come before us, we say, perhaps we can unmute also at least when we get to the response. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba, v'yalma divrach rutei v'yamlich malchotei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayed d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman karib v'yamru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam le'olam hayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudasha b'richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata damiran b'yalma v'yamru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru. Amen. We have announcements.
Next Friday, we will be celebrating,
Shmini Atzeret and
thank
Shabbat.
you. Shmini Atzeret, that one.
Shmini Atzeret and
There
Shabbat.
you go. Thank you. I'll practice. And on Sunday, we'll have Shimhat Torah, and the rabbi would like 3 or 4 people in the shul, I think, to hold the Torahs. Is that what you're asking for, Rabbi?
I think in addition to, I actually haven't spoken with Ira about what his thoughts were, but I was thinking in addition to myself and Ira, it would be helpful to have 3 additional people, unless that is too much for.
When is this for, Rabbi?
This is Sunday, not this week. Next Sunday is Simchat Torah.
The 11th.
And we're having something at 10 o'clock on the 11th, correct?
It won't work for you.
So people need to sign up for it also. You need to register for it.
Right.
It will be broadcast into the home. So we're doing, we're involving that community as well.
Well, aren't we having a service Friday night?
Yes.
Correct.
That's Shemini Atzeret.
There you
Shmini
go.
Atzeret.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then on Monday at 7 o'clock, we'll be having a board meeting. Monday at 7 o'clock, we'll be having a board meeting.
Okay.
That's the 12th.
Okay. I do have one thing to bring up, though, and this has to do with registering for this set of services. Having sufficiently confused everyone over the high holiday services and beating you all into submission for registering separately for each service, I'm changing course. So the Friday night service tonight and next Friday night service is on the same join link. So you register twice for 3 services. For tonight and next week is 1 registration, and then for Simchat Torah is a 2nd registration. I was trying to be good and not force you all to register independently for all 3, but I think I've just confused everyone.
Nonetheless, you were good. Thank you. Yes, and I should mention that we are also continuing with our community collaborations. Some of us will be on a call later in October, which will include actually communities not only from South Central Pennsylvania, but from North Central Pennsylvania. So I think that is where we are right now. And again, I'm just gonna show this again. I just wish everybody a joyful holiday. If you don't have a sukkah, put something up like this around, just to remind you. Decorate the inside like a sukkah. In fact, the Samaritans, you've heard of the Samaritans? If you live in a Christian society, you've probably heard of the Good Samaritan, but the fact of the matter is there still are Samaritans. Samaritans still do exist. It's about 1,000 people, I believe. And it's my understanding that their tradition for Sukkot is not to build Sukkot outside, maybe that's changed, but to decorate some room inside as a sukkah. And that is because of a time period that they lived through when they were oppressed and weren't allowed to build Sukkot. So, page 133. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'nasa b'chatzak kol azay melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kiklot hakol levado yimloch nohora vehu haya vehu hove vehu yihye betifara vehu echad ve'ein sheni lahamshir lo lahachbira beli reishit beli tachlit velo ha'oz vehamizrah vehu eli v'chaya goali v'tzor chevli be'et sahara vehu nisi umanos li minat kosi beyom ekra beyado afkidruchi be'etishan ve'ira v'imruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. Good Shabbos, good Yantif.
To everybody.
It's still not too late to say good Yor. Good Shabbos, good Yantif, good Yor.
Thank you, Carl.
Yes,
Thank you for your service.
and to you.
Yes.
Same to
Thank
you
you for
and to
another
everyone.
wonderful service.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Yes, everyone a good weekend and a good Yantif.
Yes.
Take good care of that squash.
I think
Rabbi,
you're
what
supposed to-
else? Rabbi,
I
what
think you're
else is in
supposed
your-
to eat it.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, they're not supposed to quite get this big, right? They get a little
Rabbi, what else was in your garden?
cucumber, although it's more blossoms than, for some reason, my cucumbers didn't come up till late. I did have
Mine all.
beans, and I have
Good
a
night.
sunflower. I planted lots of sunflowers. The squirrels loved them. But I do have one.